Dr. Rabinoff, how effective are waivers?
That's an interesting question too about waivers, and you have a little situation of whether you're talking about a waiver or an assumption of risk form. A waiver basically says that you're waiving your rights under the law to enter into an activity. An assumption of risk form is a form that illustrates very clearly, if it's written correctly, what the inherent risks or dangers of an activity are, because we know that any children in most states over the age of 14 start assuming their own risk. Of course, under the age of 14, most courts get a little less responsibility. So the older you get, the more the responsibility. In a assumption of risk form, the only way that that will work in an argument in your defense would be if the people you were warning understood, appreciated, and then acknowledged the risk. And you really have to do all three. They have to understand, appreciate it, and acknowledge the risk. And that's what the assumption of risk form. The waiver just says that even if you are injured, even if the entity, which could be a school, could be a health club, a fitness center, an athletic team, even if there was negligence, you still waive your right to sue. I think the other thing to understand is that a parent can waive their rights, but a parent really cannot waive the rights of their children. And so if you have an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old in class, and that 12-year-old gets hurt, and you as a parent sign the waiver and you elect not to sue, there's really nothing to stop that child from suing on their own behalf. So it's a real interesting question. I believe in assumption of risk forms. I think they need to be written very, very well. I recommend that all assumption of risk forms and waiver forms be run by legal counsel. Have an attorney look at it. I'm not an attorney, but in 90% of the 300 or so cases I've done over the last 30 years, assumption of risk forms come up all the time. So it is an issue that comes up in some cases, and in some jurisdictions the courts uphold them, and in some they don't. So it's an interesting area, certainly, of law, and most importantly, an interesting area for liability for coaches and teachers.